Oh, okay. So it's not with the school district anymore. It's not with the school district anymore.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
no,
Okay.
no.
Does she like it?
She does. She does.
Yeah.
Except that right now, I don't know if you know, her mother passed away about a month ago,
No.
maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks. I don't
That's
know.
hard.
Okay. All righty.
Okay.
Let me
Yes.
go
Yes.
ahead.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's one up here. There you go. I need one chair.
Do you have a seat?
I'll get one over here. Well, there's a chair up there.
There's one up here.
Sit there.
Teacher Life session. Teacher Life for T-Square provides college and career readiness for clients. We have moved our section just a little bit earlier, so thank you all so much for being here. My name is Belinda Saldana. I'm the Director of Community Outreach at UTSA, and I've been with you for the last several sessions. I would like to introduce my supervisor who's sitting right in the room today as well. So if you come up for just a moment, this is Dr. Rachel Marie, and she's the Assistant Vice President for P20 Initiative at UTSA. So I'll let you just come up and say hello.
Oh, hello everyone. This is a little new.
This is very new. We're in a different room today, everyone. I think that you all are in a different room over at Northside as well. I'm going to ask you all to please excuse my back today. I know I'm usually facing you, but this is a little bit of a different room. So I'm going to do my best to be a great hostess, and I'll be moving around this a little bit. So let's give a big round of applause to Dr. Rachel Reed.
Thank you very much. This is a great new idea, and I hope that all of you have found that it's been really valuable. And we want to try to continue to do these sessions because it's really important. So thank you on behalf of the UTSA for your participation and everything that you do for P20 and helping us to promote student success. Thank you very much.
I also want to, before we get started, recognize Jeff Goldsworth, who's in the room today with us from Region 20, who has helped organize all of this session, and he's been with us at the very first series, but he's here today, and I want to thank him again, Region 20, for hosting us. Let's give Jeff a big round of applause. I want to remind you that the purpose of Team for Life, and I know I do this each time, but we do have viewers who are actually watching these sessions. I was telling my supervisor that I was in Laredo a few weeks ago at their P16 council meeting, and they were talking about some of the things that were going on across the state, and they pulled out our C2 for Life sessions on their agenda. And said, oh, look, this is what's happening in Central America. Let me tell you about that series and how they could do it as well. And so the purpose of this is kind of to create a dialogue in our community around college knowledge. And I do want to remind you all that the topics that we cover here at these sessions, we're also covering with our parents and students, sometimes with different experts, but we are covering similar topics. So that the counselors and college and career readiness staff are learning about one topic and discussing one topic, and then the parents and students are hearing about the same topic. So last month we actually had our counselor presentation, and I'll share with you a little bit about what the parents and students had to say. I do want to ask you before we get started, you should have a survey with you, or you should have picked up the survey. As always, we'd like you to begin the survey at this time and answer the first question and ask what you already know about this topic. And then when we're done, we'll complete the rest of the survey. Also, please make sure you sign in before you leave today. We're going to go ahead and introduce our guest speakers. We're very pleased to have them with us today. We have Rhonda Fryer, who's with Northside ISD at John Marshall, and Irene Flores, who's with SAISD, who's the Gear Up Counselor. And I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about their background, and also then we'll move into the discussion of some of the topics. And I know that you all over at Northside may have some questions as well, or have some things to discuss. I was hearing some of the mumbling and comments that were going on, and hearing that, oh, you all are facing that issue as well. We are too at our school. And that's really the purpose of today's session, is to kind of talk about some common great things that are happening and some common
So all I do is college readiness. I handle financial aid, career planning for all grades and levels really.
Thank you. What do you think?
Hello, my name is Irene Flores, and I'm working with the CARE program as a counselor right now. I did work at a high school, at Readiness High School, for 21 years as a high school counselor, and then I've worked the last 4 or 5 years with SAIC as a secondary coordinator with the counseling department. So I was working with middle school and high school counselors. So I retired in June, so I came back on a part-time basis, and I'm working as a director. And we're working on financial aid for certain campuses.
Wonderful. Well, great college and career counselors don't retire, huh? They keep coming back. So for those of you that are here, we're going to again participate in the dialogue. I want you all to feel free to speak up and contribute. And then for those of you at Northside, feel free to share as well. We're going to begin our conversation with talking about, and then if anybody wants to contribute or ask questions, talking about some of the best advice that you can give to a freshman, to a senior, maybe to the parents or a new professional in your field. And Ronnie, you've been working with students for 12 years, so that's a while, huh? So sometimes you see freshmen come in the room and then you see them all the way to their senior. What's the best advice? And Irene, feel free to jump in as well. Tell us about the best advice that you can give these students.
Probably the best advice for from freshmen to seniors to parents is to stay engaged. Be engaged in the education process. It's not just going to take care of itself. You have to be engaged. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to become involved and make a commitment to that education.
Okay, and you really, when students transition into high school, it's really difficult for them. They feel very lost. So one of the things that when I help students do in transitions is that they stay focused, that they stay on track, that they are well informed, that they know what's going to be needed in order for them to move to the next level. So you want to let parents know that, for example, there's a parent portal that they can check up on their students. You want to let them know that, how often, you want to give them a calendar. You want to let them know how often grades come out, when to expect grades, how to check on attendance, how to, encourage your students to pick the most challenging courses. From the student's perspective, we always hear freshmen at the end when they're seniors say, well, if only I had known. So it's very important that they know about their grades and how it's going to impact their GPA, their rank, all the graduation requirements. And most important of all is that if you start exploring with them as far as, they've already had some training for career exploration in the middle school, but in the high school they need to continue that, and they need to take courses that are going to lead to a degree that, that they're interested in. So all of those things are really important for them.
What about for parents of high school students? I can tell you that when we did the parent-student session, one of the things that the parents said is, I wanted to talk with my counselor, but they were busy. I'm having trouble reaching them. And I think probably this year more than ever, folks with the new STAR test are very busy. So what about good advice for parents who are wanting to help their high school students?
Well, I think one of the things is that, now that you have accessibility to, your email, and a lot of parents may not have it at home, but a lot of them have it at work, where they can access and get information. So if you're putting out information to parents, or, to everybody in the, like for your different class, grade levels, that's one way to reach the parents, because, a lot of things don't get home, that, and they certainly don't communicate.
Oh, it wasn't just my case.
Everybody. So just finding a way that works, getting things up on the marquee, at crucial times when, report cards are going out or the kind of attendance that they're having. So just, making it easier for them to stay informed, using your text message when you have important activities or events coming up, and letting them know, that they're invited and what time it's going to take place and things like that. So it's keeping them informed, keeping them engaged, so that they choose to be part of the, of the child's education.
And
Well, we use the co-op systems, and we also, each one of our persons have their own co-op page. So we have a great appropriate information that is for freshmen. It's for students, PSAT, SAT education, general information that all high school students need, and their parents can access through that blog.
okay, so y'all are using blog, using some new media. Who else in the room is using social media, using Facebook or blog? Is anyone else using that to reach students or parents? Yet? Not yet? And so talking about about research and what can help students get to college, and parents are a big factor, and everyone's trying to discuss how can we get parents more involved and more engaged. What are some of the things that you all are doing to get parents involved, or maybe you all at Northside, or anyone in the room? What are some of the strategies or programs that you all are doing to get parents involved in this process?
Parent nights. There's a parent night for every specialist. Now, whether we get them to attend the parent nights is another issue. But the information is made available, it's advertised on the marquee, it's on the blog. We have as many parent nights as possible so that we can keep the parents engaged, because it is very important.
Well, I know that, for example, with our senior group that we have right now, they were, they have been part of the Bureau program, since they were in the sixth grade. And I know that throughout the program, they've had a lot of activities, and I'm going to talk about maybe some of the activities that they've gone through, or you got, because I know that they're very familiar with some of the things that they did for parents. I was working, with the other portion, but they were doing the gear up, and so maybe they
You want to share, guys?
Yes.
Tell us about some of the things you were doing.
Not part of the Campus Family Network.
Oh, okay.
I was fortunate to move this camera a little bit too.
I was fortunate to be one of the facilitators with Rita with the Garrett program, focusing on engaging the parents. And so we created a campus leadership team of parents. And we polled campuses to say, who are some of these parents that you think would be good for this team? And so our mission was to get them involved, and so they would get other parents involved. And interesting that we're having this conversation today, because I had one of those parents come to my office yesterday. I now work with the district's office on parent engagement and community involvement. And she was telling me she went back to the beginning days of when we started, and how she was petrified and didn't know anything about college. And her first daughter got a SAC, but she said, y'all took us to A&M. And then you took me to spend the night in a dorm, And she said, here my daughter's over there spending the night, but I'm spending the night. She said, so what you did by forming a group of us, she said, we parents are still staying together, even though the Europe, it's a little bit different. She said, we formed the bonds and we're counting on each other. So the power of getting those groups of parents together to help each other, because there's nothing like parent to parent, I find out. And so, it was funny. It was like taking a trip down memory lane, but she was talking about CASPAS and this. I'm like, yes, and her daughter has gotten accepted all over the place. Like 10 or 12 places. Baylor and A&M, but she picked Texas Tech, and she said, Mom, I know. They offer me more money, but this is what happens. But the conversation I was having with this parent took me back to the days when the parents would tell us, I don't know what that is. But it was us providing opportunities for them to learn and to take that mystery away. But that parent relationship is so critical. And so what I heard from her yesterday was that those small groups of parents, to get them the experience, and then they can go share with the others. One of my favorite stories is we were in D.C., and we had a parent, one of the Europe conferences, she said she was at a party, and her friend was saying she was going to buy a new car, and she was going to do this, but she wasn't going to pay for a child to go to this summer STEM camp. The mom said, excuse me? You're going to invest in a car? How long is that going to last you? The education for your child? How long is that going to last? I was going, yes. But this was a parent with a high school diploma who'd been on some of these trips and provided with the information, felt safe to know we're really all about your kids. And then they're helping each other. So, we did some pretty creative things.
I was going to tell him you forgot about your tote bag, that we teamed up with UTSA. And when we teamed up with UTSA at the beginning, they were able to provide us these tote bags, and inside the tote bags, Janice created these folders, and all the folders were like 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, service learning, financial aid packets. So anytime that a parent received something, they had a file, a portable file, that they would carry all these things. And some of the parents would come to the meetings. Their little folders were totally packed because they had really gone back and found a lot of the certificates that the kids had won when they were in elementary and all that. And they just put them all inside this little tote bag. And so UTSA was a great partner in helping us advance that parent network. They helped us with the meetings. They helped us with the items that we were not allowed to buy, but they were allowed to buy. And so it was a good partnership. So that's another advice, is that you get a higher ed institution to partner with the school district so that you can help parents along. Because like Janice said, it was invaluable for them to be able not to go to the campus, but to stay at the campus. And we did that through UTSA.
And the fact that you were able to help them stay organized by providing those resources was really great as well.
And just one more thing, Dr. Rosales, you might, I don't know how to say this too, but this Gear Up program, UTSA, will be concentrating on a parental academy. And to do the very same thing that you all said, to take it up a notch and to help parents become leaders within their communities. So we will be going out into your communities. We're going to look to you to help us, to tell us where to go. And, we have our mobile growth center, that's our, what do we call it, lab on wheels.
Right.
And what we want to do is go where the parents are located. So we will be doing that beginning next month.
Right.
Right, and so the parental piece, I think we can't stress enough how important it is to engage with parents and make sure that they're really see the students all the time and really are a great influence.
Well, but you know, and then the thing that I saw is that they continue to go to high school. And high school is very difficult to have any kind of parent participation. So I think that the fact that they started them and they formed those leadership groups at the middle school level, and they had some activity planned for them all the time, then they were able to transition that into high school and continue that into high school. So that's really good. It's really difficult to get parents to attend some of the things.
So let me ask, I know that there's really the big player or the person who has the control of it all is the team. And I know that when we met with the students and the parents, one of the things that I stressed was a very simple fact. And I think that some students, when they start out, if they don't have parents who were involved in college or their first generation, they might not realize that every single grade from 9th grade, 10th grade, all the way up counts on their transcript and will follow them. What would you say are the worst mistakes the team can make during their high school years as far as getting prepared for college?
Well, there are some things. First of all, sometimes they get themselves into situations where they don't know who to ask for help. They don't ask questions. They don't know who to go to. They feel that their situation is theirs alone. That nobody else has that same problem. And so, they don't seek any kind of assistance from anyone. So I think those are some of the mistakes that they make.
And assuming that their teachers already know they're struggling. Well, an output, just a grade isn't just going to be an indicator. They need to let them know, I'm not understanding this. You can tell me all day that I don't understand this. Seek out the tutoring services that are provided on campus free. We have a program where we actually have community tutoring and provide bus service for them home. And eating
That's a big issue.
It's a
Students
big
want to stay for
but
tutoring,
they
they have to come.
yeah. So we'll have a designated time frame where there's tutoring in place, and then they can just go back home. So, but to advocate for themselves, but they can't expect others to know that there's a problem, because by the time others may have time to recognize that, the problem's so deep it's hard to get out of the deficit.
And if they can get in the habit of doing that in high school, then it'll be much easier when they get to college, where they have to advocate for themselves and go speak with their professor during college hours. And we're going to talk about that next month. We're going to have college professors talking to us about what they expect in the academic classroom. Does anybody want to add anything to that about some of the mistakes?
Well, Melinda, I would like to add about math. That is really one of the biggest mistakes that the kids make. What I mean by that is they don't get their foundation in Algebra 1. Trust me, if they would have that foundation in Algebra 1 and geometry, they would do well on the SAT and the ACT, and then they would be able to get into college without any remediation. You see, that is one of the biggest mistakes. Because they don't have that foundation in math, they end up in these remediation courses, and then they get discouraged when they're there, especially if they end up in the third remediation, because you know that there's 3 levels of that remediation in math. So to me, that's one of the biggest mistakes, is that they don't take care of that math when they should, that 9th grade year, and build on it the others. And as a matter of fact, some of them get the opportunity at 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade, to take that algebra class. That counts on the transcript too. You said 9th grade, but the reality is that some of them at 8th grade, it starts counting there on their transcript for math. So I would say that's a big mistake, because that equates to money. Because when you're taking those remediation courses, you're going to have to pay for those courses and not get any credit. And I think that the professors will, say the same thing, especially about the remediation.
Yeah,
the math and the writing, those two things.
Whatever we can do to help students stay out of college remediation is better. And that was one of the things actually that, just so you know, that the parents and students mentioned, particularly the parents, is that sometimes when they're choosing courses for high school, that the turnaround time might be too quick, or they want to meet with counselors to discuss, is my student ready for this, or I'd like them to try to take a more rigorous course. And so um, that was one of the things they mentioned, wanting to help encourage their students to take the most rigorous course, and maybe wanting to meet with counselors to help in those decisions.
And I think if the parents know about, things like the Explore test, for example, that will guide them, let them know if their child is ready for some of these, big AP courses in high school. That would be another tool, because they do get the results when they take it, but they don't necessarily know how to interpret those results and what things are, their students should be looking at. So
Tell me a little bit about that test, Irene. Is that available at certain districts, or? And because we're going to have some parents that are watching this perhaps on video later on, so there's something called the Explorer test.
the Explorer is for 8th grade students, and it's part of, it's like ACT. It's a preliminary to, just like the plan in the 10th grade. The Explorer is given at the 8th grade, and they do get the results. They do get, their interest, at that particular time, what they're interested in, and it does let them know how to get in each of the subject areas. And depending on their score, that should be an indicator as to how successful they'll be in some of these classes. So maybe they shouldn't be in a AP class for every core area, but then there are some strengths that maybe they should consider. So they look at that, and they can always ask the counselor, what's the range for this particular one. But they give them a little book, and it gives them an explanation, and it gives them the results for their child. So that's available for the eight. I think they're still doing that.
Yes, sir.
They're still doing anything. So that would be one. And then the same thing for 10th grade students. They take the plan, and so then they also know, what, and of course you're looking at their grades throughout the year too. And when you have a student that's making all A's and they're taking all the other courses, and as a counselor, you need to make sure that they fit into some of those 3 PMT courses.
Right. Even if they don't realize it.
Right. Yes. And you need to talk to them, and you just tell them that they're a great student, they're doing very well, and as long as you take they be creative in their time. Because it's going to be a little more work. So.
And sometimes all it takes is having an adult, their counselor, tell them that they can do it,
Right.
and then they believe they can do it. I want to pause for just a moment and ask the folks over at Northside if you want to add anything or contribute, have any questions at this time. Don't want to leave you guys out. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I'm fine. I'm very fine. Thank you.
Okay, well, feel free to jump in whenever you like.
One suggestion. I have a suggestion. The lady next to me is fried. I cannot hear her.
Okay, Irene? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll speak. Thank you. We'll speak up.
Thank you.
And you're hearing my drama voice from Burbank High School. That's why I sound a little loud.
I hear everybody's drama voice except hers.
Let me ask you a question, because we are in the middle of College Week in San Antonio, Destination College. I know where I'm going, and we talked about that last month if you've joined us. We had Mari Medina with us from GenTX, and we talked about College Week and all the different activities. And I was looking at the Facebook page for the folks over at Café College, and saw they've been having great, wonderful groups of elementary kids. I think they had 250 middle school kids and their parents last night. Was anybody there last night? Okay, great.
Wait, Annette was.
Okay, wonderful. Roxanne over here was. And so as we talk about college and career readiness and creating more awareness, especially this week, we know that there's also some challenges that have been going on this spring, because we have a new test that Jeff told us about earlier in our series called the STAR test, and that has really increased the uh, the need to have students in the classroom. I understand there's less access to students now than there has ever been before. So let's talk about that for just a moment. I want to talk about how are you getting around that challenge of really wanting to increase college readiness. get access to the students like you did in semesters past. So let's talk about that.
It takes a cooperation with the department heads. You make activities through the departments that are curriculum-based, resume building, with your career technology classes, when they're typing information. You have to incorporate cooperation and explain the end goal, really, to the department heads. Because they're looking at, we've got benchmark numbers that have to be met. I don't have time for that. But when you can incorporate it, show where it really does meet with their curriculum, it's the best way to do it, because otherwise you're not going to get in the classroom.
That's exactly right. You have to build those relationships with the teachers, and you can do it several ways. I know that one of the things that we've done at the college readiness teams at the different, at the high schools, where you do have the counselor, you do have an administrator, you do have your department heads, and you can, work together and decide, what times during the year, they can work it into their schedule, or who's going to be working on a particular event or an activity for college readiness. It helps in two ways. First of all, they build it into their curriculum. I mean, they can add it to their curriculum, and also they can help you with a lot of the events, and not one person is doing it by themselves all the time. So, that definitely is the best way to do it. But also, like she was saying, getting it into the curriculum. I know that Roxanne has looked into getting the FAFSA into the curriculum for economics next year. And so, using the economics teachers to help, distribute the information, teach students what's needed to do the FAFSA, and helping us, collect some of the forms so that they're ready to do the FAFSA. So, and of course, then always working with your English department and making sure that they are, doing the essays with the students, that, they're proofreading them before they send them up to the colleges. They've also had the students in years past do autobiographies that helps the counselors when they're writing letters of recommendation. So just engaging as many people as possible to be on board and to know. I think communication, make sure that your entire faculty knows what's going on and what the purpose is. So that's crucial.
I want to repeat that idea one more time because, again, I know that people are going to be watching and listening later on. Because, yes, I've heard about the essays being written during English class, and folks have been doing that for a long time. But going through the FAFSA during an economics class, that sounds new. And so that sounds like a really great idea. What are some of the things and challenges that everyone else is facing? And how are you getting around those issues? Or what questions do you have that some of the veterans can help with? Or has it all been smooth sailing? Okay, that's what I thought. So let's talk about that.
Well, I know that with the FAFSA, there's a lot of, they don't want to say anything, but they all know what kinds of problems they run into at the campuses. With the FAFSA, there are a lot of issues, It's difficult to get forms from parents, if they don't file an income tax, that's one of the issues. Some of the students, their parents don't don't do it electronically. I mean, and that of course this year with the retrieval tool, that was an issue because they're used to just maybe doing it on paper and mailing it in. So that has been a struggle because you need the information and you need to use that tool.
Let me pause there for just a moment because there is a new tool and a new aspect of FAFSA that's really affecting the way students are having to file. And that is that before, it used to be with the FAFSA, the pre-application for student aid, a student could do the FAFSA, the parent did not have to actually file, they had to have it filled out, right? But now, if you're going to use the correct year, then you have to have actually filed. And they're getting something from the IRS saying that's correct. The data intrusion, and so that has really changed things. Now, I do know that Christopher Goldsberry in our financial aid office was suggesting to us that if you want to make sure that you get it in early, because at our campus it's first come first serve, that you can use the previous years, and that it would be an estimate. So you'll have to go back, of course, later, but it kind of puts you in line, the front of the line, and so that's one thing. But also, how is that affecting you all? I know we were talking about that earlier.
It's created a great
got that estimated figure on file, and they're still not receiving the word letter until they go in and change it to the already completed. That completion, that correction, is a piece that students are just not aware how important it is. If you go in and do the correction with your actual figures and use the data retrieval tool, you'll have, an award letter within a week. But that is a huge piece that, if you do those estimated figures, as soon as that actual figure is available, go in and do the correction with the data retrieval tool. Because otherwise, they're going to be held for verification. And many campuses will not issue a financial aid package if you're pending verification. So it's another area of delay where a student may not know until July what their package is going to be.
And students will go in and, they'll, like she said, they'll start the FAFSA and they think, okay, well, I've done it. And they'll never go back and make any corrections. They'll get an email and they'll let them know, you need to go back and do this because they have to provide an email address.
Right.
But if they don't read that email address or they'll think, I'll do it later, and it never gets done, they're not complete. But in their minds, they think they've already done the FAFSA because they submitted it.
Yeah.
So, and especially with the fact that, like with the kids, they were saying that they would accept that. All they hear is the word accept and they think that they're done.
Good. Yeah.
You
Don't
know.
have to worry about it.
Right. So that's, and then there may be a long time between the time they did it and the time their parents actually file. They may be waiting until right now this past week in April, for the deadline, and so they may think, okay, well, I'm already done. So the reminder, the following week, that's been our role as the Gear Up Counselor team now going out into the high school campuses. So we have a counselor at every campus to make sure that the students are following through and to assign students to an adult that's going to work with them and can go back and make sure that they have completed the FAFSA and that they actually have their student aid report and that they have their estimated time and then it's time.
There's been a big push. One of the mayor's goals is to have more students fill out financial aid applications than ever before. We know that the research said that 90% of students that fill out a FAFSA will go on to college. And so the chambers have been wonderful about getting volunteers, and there's been a big push across the community. And then we also have this change with FAFSA. So how is it affecting you all at your campus? Are you seeing, do you think, more students filling out the FAFSA because of the push, less students having that issue because of the change? What are some of the things that you all are seeing at your campuses?
Well, we've seen an increase because our goal is 100% of the seniors complete. Last year we went from 42 to 48, which certainly is not significant, but it was the first time we received actual information to tell us from DOE who completed. Because before we just, kids, like Irene said, kids said, oh yeah, I did that. But they just halfway did it.
Right.
Or this organization helped me or this one helped me. Now this year with that list we have and knowing who's responsible for which kids, we're really able to follow them. And I think what everybody finds is if you, at least in our case, if we don't really pull them in and sit down with them and say, okay, let's go through this, let's make sure it's done correctly, that they don't go back. And then they get to college and they're like, what? I don't have any money? I thought I had money. I submitted, and the college says, but you didn't sign it. Or, some simple thing that could have been avoided had we taken care of it up front.
And that's a great tool, being able to see who actually filled it out and who didn't. We're going to be having Greg Darnier is going to be our guest later this afternoon, so I'll tell him that's a great tool. Is there anything else you need to do to simplify that? It's working well.
Well, I think the other thing for everyone is to realize that it's not, the counselors aren't the only people that should have college knowledge and access. It has to be everybody on that campus. So, it's more than, like she said, it's more than just the academic score. But it's so many other things that keep kids from going or help them go. And I think sometimes teachers have really great relationships because they see kids every day. So we're trying to get everybody to buy into, we're all college access professionals. We all know this information. And if a student asks you, you can tell them right then. Because the chances of saying, go see the counselor, well, that's 400 kids trying to see one person. That's just crazy. When we could know simple answers to things, and they could take care of the most difficult things.
Right. And so are there things that you all do at your campus to help bring everyone up to speed as far as college knowledge, or is there any training that happens at different campuses so that English teachers and history teachers have this awareness? Is there anything that should be happening that anyone can help you with?
There's a lot of training that has gone on. Roxanne's not talking there, but every when they with their program, they also provided training for all of the high schools, and they included people from all of the departments, and so they would meet for 2 or 3 days at a time, and they would meet all day, and they would talk about nothing but college knowledge. And so they did a lot of planning. They had activities at the end of the day for the whole group met, and they decided what was going to happen at their campus. They drew up their calendar. They were very, very involved with all of the aspects. And so we had a lot of speakers. We had a lot of information. And then the first week of school, they had a suspended curriculum. And all of these teachers would then talk to students, and they all had different topics, depending on the grade level. But they started off with ninth grade, and then they did 10th, and then as they were following their Europe group, but everybody was benefiting from the program, not just the Europe students, because they were getting the information. If the Europe students, they had the ninth grade, then the following year, the new ninth graders had that same information and that same opportunity. So they started building, and improving more and more information for students, and the number of students going to college. So, and that's been in place for 4 years.
4 years.
So I mean, they have done a lot with that program, and they included everybody. So.
Anybody else want to add anything here?
Yeah, well, I know at Burbank, in the San Antonio district, our teachers are very cooperative, and they allow me to come into, especially the English classes. We have the IB magnet school there, and Avid, and classes like that. They're very receptive, to let me come in, and like for this college signing day, we've been, uh, getting kids signed up for this evening, and so, but it's just you have to get out there and hustle.
Right.
But kids, when they see me, they say, "I know what you're going to ask me about their FAFSA." But yeah, it's a struggle, but we keep working at it.
College signing day tonight. How many of you are taking students, or students that are going to the college signing day? Okay.
Every high school.
Great. So let me ask another question. I'll ask you guys first, and then I want everyone to share if you'd like. For those of you that have been in the profession for 12 years, retired and come back, there's a reason that you've stayed involved so long. And I think about a very simple example when I was working for another university, helping to get students to come to this university. You meet kids all the time, and I got a call one day, probably it was late, about 9 o'clock at night. Oh, this is, so-and-so. You gave me your business card when I was a ninth grader, and you said to talk to you when I was, getting close to graduating. Well, I'm getting close to graduating now, and he kept my card this whole time. So he listened. I must have said something that resonated, and he called, and we were able to help him and get it to school. Tell me about your success stories, the things that keep you passionate about doing what you're doing, the student who came to see you all the time, applied and got their scholarship and were successful. Tell me about those stories.
I think there are many students that come in and no one's ever told them they can do something. You can go to college. No, my parents said can't. Well, no, you can't. There's a lot of different ways. And I think there's a little bit of that in every student. They don't have that, not every student has that confidence, that support system behind them. I have one particular student who I didn't know until he came to me about financial aid. He had been sleeping in his car now for like a month. He didn't even come home. Well, he graduated, or will graduate in May from A&M as an engineer. Top of his class, wonderful student. But it's the kids like that that they don't have someone tell them, you can do this, that they would want to do.
Let me interject there for just one moment and remind you that we are not the only ones, but UTSA is working closely with homeless youth and foster youth to help them become aware of their benefits and things that are available to them. Other schools are doing it too, but if you have students that need those kind of resources, let us know so we can put you in touch with the right folks.
Well, I guess we all have, people that we remember and that we have worked with, but just in general, I think that students are very appreciative of any kind of time that you give them, any kind of explanation. I think that if you make yourself just available, and if you're, you welcome them into your office, I think that a lot of times, I know in the counseling field, we wear so many hats, and we're extremely busy, doing a lot of, whether it's getting ready for testing or whether it's, checking, credits or whatever, sometimes it's just really difficult to get to them. But I think that if you bring it, every time you bring a student in, and this is, whatever reason they're there to see you, if you'll take the time to talk about other things besides what he came in to see you, I think that really, that makes their day, that makes your day, and they remember that. And I think that they feel very comfortable coming back to you and asking you any questions. So I think that your approach to students is probably the key, to any, to your success, because that's what makes them, that's what's going to bring them back to you, and that's what's going to help you get them to the places they need to be, and make them go as far as possible.
And you build that relationship. That's right. What about everyone else? Tell us about your success story.
I come from UTSA, and I'm now with the district, and I work with middle school students. And one thing that I've seen on two opposite ends, I guess, working with college students as undergrads versus maybe a middle school student, is that a lot of these middle school students, regardless of what's going on at home or in the community, when you step aside with one and you kind of make them feel validated and you tell them, I'm a college coach, they're like, wow, sir, so where's Baylor? Or where's, you mentioned Harvard or you mentioned Stanford. They're like, what's that? And you give them a little bit of information and they keep coming back. And they really hang on. And it's just, it resonates because I remember when I was there and I was first generation and nobody told me about those things when I was at that age. And so I try to tell any student about, you can do this and you're important and you're valued. And when you work with college students, they just want to get through college. And so that's way different. And so working with the middle school students, it's just that much more meaningful every day to be able to go to a middle school and serve, Latino students predominantly. And so that's really important.
And you said the key word, Frankie, they feel validated. And our professor, renowned Professor Laura Rendon would say, she had this whole validation theory about how you can help students feel validated, and that leads them to believe in themselves, stay engaged, stay in college, and graduate. So anyone else want to add anything to this? The success stories or the reason that you have been involved? Anybody who's been in this area for, let's say, 12 years or more, like Rhonda? Okay, back there.
Oh, there's a lot of them.
You don't want to raise your hand. You don't want to tell her age. Tell her the trustee is next year.
You know what, Belinda, one of the biggest success stories that I had was when I was teaching at Sam Houston, and I would recommend to the students, because I taught math, and so I would recommend to certain students, maybe your best route, athletes were go to junior college first, but you really have to do well, and then I promise you, if you do well in junior college, then you'll make it to that next level. Well, I did that. I would always give them that advice, and when I saw one student playing at Texas Tech on television, I cried because I couldn't believe it. I mean, he made it, and he was a special ed student in my Avid class. Wow. And he had gone to junior college like I had suggested, and there he was playing with Bobby Knight, Texas Tech. That was a thrill. That was a thrill.
Well, Linda, we had an event at UTSA this week, and it's a program that we're working with Alamo colleges, and it's called the Transfer Academy for Tomorrow's Engineers. And we had our first orientation Tuesday night, and it was wonderful to see this group of students who want to be engineers. And what our, and working with Alamo colleges, what we're saying is that we want to recruit from San Antonio, educate in San Antonio, and hire in San Antonio. And these first students, it brought almost tears to my eyes as well to see that they were ready to make that transition to UTSA and to the College of Engineering. And they're so excited, and they're ready to do the work. We're going to have a summer boot camp for them, concentrating on writing and research. So the community college, and I'm a product of the community college, and I know how difficult it is for students to transfer to a 4-year, and then once they're there, to navigate their way, to figure out where everything is. But that's part of what we want to do in P20 with our TATE Academy, is to help them. And it's all about, as we've talked about today, it's all about the information, that this college knowledge that they get, and the confidence and the validation that they can take those high-paying jobs right here in San Antonio. And we don't have to recruit from away. So that's sort of one of our success stories right now. Now we need to get them through and get that degree.
Ms. Booth, I've been to your college and career center over at O'Connor when I worked for another university. Is there anything you want to add? Any success story you want to add?
We don't have time. No, I've been at O'Connor. I've been at O'Connor for 11 years, and every day is something different, and I really have enjoyed it very much. So, no comments.
Well, like I said, I've been to your center, and it is a great area. I want to, as we get ready to wrap things up, I want to remind you of some things that are happening coming up, and that is on Friday. Tomorrow is Wear Your College T-Shirt Day. I hope everybody will be wearing their college T-shirt. I know we'll be wearing ours. April 21st is Destination College, the Summit, over at the UTSA main campus. And I hope that all of you and your students will be there. If you need more information, you just visit the iknowwhereimgoing.com website, and it'll tell you more about that. Saturday as well, we're having our next Saturday parent-student workshop, and of course all of our parents and students can go to the summit afterwards if they like. And we're going to have some college professors out there at our downtown campus from 9 to 10:30, and the professors will be talking about what they expect in the college classroom, what they expect of their students to help them to be successful. We'll have a professor from Trinity, some professors from San Antonio College, Northwest Vista, UTSA, and so we'll have a variety of professors. And then next month, on May 3rd, we'll have professors here as well, so you all can quiz the professors, and they'll be sharing that same information. If we don't have any other questions, though, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. I'm going to ask you to please complete your survey and turn it into your site post. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Ms. Schreier, Ms. Flores, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise. Thank all of you and you at Northside for being here, and thanks for all you do for your students in your community. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Belinda.